Hey everybody, how is it going? It is June 14th. This is the RambleCast. I'm Cody Toombs, and with me,
Hello.
we have Corbin Davenport.
Hey,
Um, we are organized. I swear. I threw him for a loop there. That's my fault.
only 46 minutes late.
Oh no, we are not. I've long since changed the start time. Actually, I don't remember if I changed it to 2:30 or 3. And I say that obviously in Pacific time. It's whatever you Easterners have. Um, but yeah, I have long since changed it. It's something
Okay.
else more
So
appropriate.
only 15 minutes.
Well, either 15 minutes late or 15 minutes early. I don't
Okay.
remember anymore. Um, but yeah, I realized a long time ago that this show will never ever start. It'll never start at exactly 2 because uh, for your timing, and I'm usually still eating lunch, or not still eating lunch, but I'm usually just finishing up lunch. Anyway, so our bookkeeping aside, actually, I suppose we probably should start with a little bit of bookkeeping. Um, a little bit of a self promotion, self plug, self whatever it is. Tech Tales Year 2.
Yes, the Tech Tales podcast, which is mine and Cody is on many times, is now 2 years old. So there's now close to 50 episodes, and I think when I last checked, the past year alone is somewhere like 12 hours of audio, something around there. So the next time you have a very long trip somewhere, you can there's plenty of tech tales for you to listen to. And yeah, and the last year or so has more than half of it was episodes about Internet Explorer. But we got in some stuff about um, the Project Star Trek at Apple, which was their first attempt to bring Mac to x86 PCs. I did an episode with Joe Fidowa about the Microsoft Tay chatbot, which became much more timely a few months later. uh, Once ChatGPT started gaining steam, and a few other like fun episodes. First movie club episode, of which I
First and
will do
only.
I will do more. I just haven't got to it yet. Um, and also redesigned the logo and all the artwork in the past year. And yeah, so uh, 2 years of Tech Tales down. Hopefully, many more to come.
Yes.
And
So,
still completely free on all the podcast places, and I'll put that blog post is in there, but I'll put the just show link in the YouTube chat.
I like how you say still completely free, which sounds very foreboding. Kind of the
Yeah.
free for
Well,
now.
Spotify has not given me a handful of money yet. Um, I'd like to think I would not take the fistful of money, but I am desperately trying to save up to purchase a house at some point. So if they get me at the right time, we'll see. But Spotify is actually not doing a whole lot of that right now. They're actually laying off a lot of their podcast people. So
Yes.
I'm not holding out hope for that one.
Um, just as a side thought, that the YouTube chat interface is driving me nuts because I now have the reactions thing, and it covers up words on the most recent message. How can
Great.
they build such a bad interface? Anyway, um, but yes, you are now beholden to start putting in ads. That
Yep. No one has uh, wanted to advertise on there yet. I don't know why. It gets a whole like 80 plays in the first, week or so. That's such a wide market, untapped market, I think, for any advertiser.
oh yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. And unfortunately, still very far off from the YouTube uh, partner stuff. So I think the new limit's like 1,000 subscribers, right? Or
Okay,
5,000.
so I actually wasn't going to discuss this, but I guess it probably does warrant a discussion.
Yeah, we
Um,
can.
so thanks to Curvy, because actually Curvy, I think posted sort of the perfect pair of tweets to discuss this, but it, a ton of sites covered this wrong, and it's funny because like half the servers I'm in, somebody wanted to discuss this in some capacity. Um, but yeah, so YouTube quote unquote lowered its eligibility requirements, uh, and now you can join the partner program with 500 subscriptions or subscribers. Um, and let's see, they dropped it to either 3,000 watch hours as opposed to 4,000, or 3 million shorts views as opposed to the original 10 million. And I know that this is totally unimportant, but just as a side note, can't there be like a middle ground in there where it's like 1,500 watch hours and say 1.5 million shorts views? Like, get a little bit of that mix and match action going in there. Anyway, so yeah, they've officially dropped the requirements in order to become quote unquote monetized. Uh, and you do technically join as a YouTube partner. One of the notable things is you go through the entire setup process as a partner, which is, I call it a process. From what I understand, it's very very basic. You're really just giving them, like, I think an account to deposit into, if you don't have them send you checks, and
Right.
and you go through the basic like authorization process. Like, that's it. It's very simple. From what I understand, like, once this starts, usually it's just like a few weeks of waiting for them to like go through the motions, and then all of a sudden one day you're just monetized. It's not like a big back and forth in most instances. I've heard a few people say they've had nightmare stories of like having to send documents and stuff like that, but it's generally pretty simple. Regardless, none of this actually gets you in for YouTube ads or monetizing your shorts, even, like, so that you get part of the shared money as a shorts maker. That is a weird sentence, but okay.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that doesn't happen until you hit the old requirements of 1,000 subscribers and either 4,000 watch hours or 10 million views of shorts. So yeah, the things that you're getting kind of, well, I'll get to that in a moment. But the notable thing is, when you do hit those thresholds, you are going to get you automatically transition into being able to show ads. So you don't have to like reapply. There's no extra steps. At that point, you're just already authorized. Anyway, so yeah, this works. It does happen. The perks that you get at the lower authorization level, or qualification, whatever we're going to call it, it basically means that you can now open up channel memberships. You can accept super chats, super thanks, and whatever the other thing is, I forget what it is. Basically, all the tipping methods, plus the channel subscriptions. Or I guess I'll call them or memberships. Sorry, that's the word for it. Memberships. Effectively, what they're doing, at least the way I interpret this, is they're trying to just claw back a little bit of the territory that Patreon has been enjoying. Early channels typically, they get a lot of people like fanning out over a channel, and that's usually where it starts building steam. Is in those like pre-1,000 subscriber spots. That's where usually the steam kind of starts building. YouTube, I'm sure, probably doesn't want to try to make deal with making those channels advertiser friendly, but they don't want to lose out on the fact that a bunch of people are starting to build up around a channel, and in the meantime, the creators on those channels are obviously like asking their viewers to subscribe, to to go on Patreon and help support the channel there. Which, speaking of, if anyone is hearing this now, I do in fact also have my own Patreon link down below. If you'd like to support the channel, please click subscribe. You'll be appreciated. Much like the 3 wonderful people who already do. So, yeah, I see this as basically YouTube just trying to take back some of the money that Patreon was making. Actually, a lot of the money Patreon was making, because it's the channels that can't get monetized yet that are really the ones that are driving a lot of Patreon's like early business. Like just in small doses across the board.
Yeah, and once you're in Patreon, you're sort of encouraged to mostly stay there, because if you set up a Patreon and then YouTube opens up their membership thing, then like you sort of have to like run 2 systems at once for this kind of stuff, and that can be a lot of work. So but yeah, as I look at my YouTube Studio app, Tech Tales is at 127 subscribers on YouTube, and it needs 1,000 according to the app, and it has 510 out of the 4,000 public watch hours. So a little bit of a ways to go on both of those, but maybe in 10 years we'll see.
Yeah. Well, for I assume fairly obvious reasons, my watch hours are I'm not to 4,000 for sure, or even 3,000, but my watch hours are pretty high. Let's see. Where was I at? My current subscriber count is at 57, so I'm a little too far away for that to make much of a difference. But damn it, where the... Let's see. Okay, I'm at I'm at 1,006 watch hours. So pretty good for 57 subscribers.
Yep.
I'll take it. Seeing as I only stream 3 days a week too. So
the episodes getting the most views are still reasons I can't explain. Like for the past, I don't know, couple months, by far the most popular episode has been the Intel Titanium one. I don't know why. Like, no, like this isn't like a relevant topic. Like nothing's really come up here that would like push it. Like there's no reason for people to be searching for Intel Titanium. Like except for the handful of like news events where it comes out that like Linux is like dropping support for it or something. Like this isn't relevant at all. I don't know where these views are coming from. Like I think if I tap it, it tells me like top traffic sources like YouTube search and browse. I don't know, man. And like, this might be the worst episode in terms of audio quality too. So that's always fun. Um,
Yeah, I forgot about that. I wasn't on that one, but
yeah,
I remember hearing the audio that the other person recorded or didn't record got lost or something.
yeah. No, it was they had a like really loud fan going, and I
Ah,
didn't realize that. I was like, oh, okay. Well, you know, and also that was the second episode, so also didn't fully understand how to use Audacity yet. So it happens.
Austin with a pretty good explanation. You've gone viral in the Santa Clara Intel office.
Ooh, yeah. So yeah, like eventually, I think I'll loop back around to like redoing some of the earlier episodes, and that will be first on the list because it is almost unlistenable um, in its current form. But yeah, so yeah, 2 years of Tech Tales. Go subscribe and listen to it so I can maybe get to that YouTube goal before I die. Or the heat death of the universe, whichever comes first.
Oh, so yeah, I'm gunning to have a at least one of those silver YouTube plaques within the next couple years. So I think it's silver that I'm
Nice.
shooting for. Whatever the 100K is. I'm not unrealistic here. I'm not gonna go for the million. Not that fast.
Austin said you just need a plant at Microsoft to spread your IE episode. uh,
That would
no,
help.
they know what happened over there. There's
Yeah,
nothing.
they've heard.
Yeah.
Um, and Carson asking how much on my main channel. Bearing in mind that my main channel, at least as far as the outside world is concerned, my main channel has not posted anything since that Google Maps thing from like 8 years ago or something, which only lasts less than a minute. That said, and I'll even share the view right here. I have 4 public watch hours on that channel, despite not posting anything in forever and it only lasting a few seconds. So, weirdly better than it should be. And also 281 subscribers, which I swear they will be getting a video not too long from now. It will actually happen. Also, Austin, yes. The thing blocking my green screen, it wasn't actually blocking my green screen. It's a spot where my green screen doesn't reach. So I have to turn my monitor between views, which is dumb, but it's a thing. I need to just redo this whole office, but that will come hopefully soon. Anyway, so yes, there will be another good year of Tech Tales to come. There will be videos coming on my main channel, hopefully soon, and Corbin and I will officially be creators. That is going to be our actual job titles.
The Corbin and Cody audio universe, not cinematic universe. Well,
Uh,
cinematic in your case, I don't know.
I mean, well, you are on a video podcast kind of thing,
Well,
so
it's video in the way that a static image is video. So
I
I don't know
mean,
if
we
that
move a
counts.
little more than that. We move
Oh,
enough that
this,
they
yeah.
can confirm we're not dead.
I was thinking of Tech Tales. Okay.
True. Um, we'll see. That'll be a feature for season 3. Bring in the video.
Yeah. Definitely something I'd like to try for something, but yeah. Um
Okay,
yeah,
so
so I guess Reddit time.
um, let's see. Did we? Yeah. Let's go to Reddit. It feels like it's a good energy moment to make fun of something terrible. So, um,
Yeah, Reddit, Reddit done goofed, I think is the correct term for this. Um, there's been the back and forth for, I think it's only been like 2 months maybe, of we're gonna do changes to the API, and then they did some calls with some of app developers, and then at some point there was a final decision on the API pricing, and then there was outages and all that fun stuff. And basically, what materialized in the past week or so, or maybe 2 weeks, I don't have a sense of time really at this point. The past month's kind of been a blur for me, but the 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 short version is that Reddit announced pricing for their API, which is, of course, the thing that all Reddit apps use to interact with the website and let you look at posts and leave comments and vote on stuff. And also what a bunch of tools that integrate with Reddit use. So there are a lot of mod tools that a lot of subreddit moderators have been using that are not built into Reddit. They're like external tools using Reddit's APIs. Um, and Reddit announced new pricing for that API, which was I think it was paid before, but it like was pretty reasonable. I don't think it was entirely free. Um, but I don't know. I know like if you were just making like smaller projects, like every time I've made something that interacts with it, like that's free. Like you just make the API keys that are tied to your account.
yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't know for sure if they were charging. I figured it was only for heavy use, like
yeah,
very heavy use.
it
Uh,
might be.
Regardless, the prices that they were raising to were pretty untenable. Um,
Yeah, they weren't like quite Twitter API pricing, but they had the same effect of um, really any apps are now unfeasible. Like because with the higher prices to the API, those prices would have to be handed down to or passed down to whoever's using the app. So immediately there are no more free Reddit apps. Like
yeah,
that's out the window. Theoretically, some apps could charge like a lot of money per month if they wanted to stay alive, but again, like
yeah.
most people don't pay for stuff like that. So
So from what I saw, there was there was a rough calculation I saw somebody doing about how much it would actually cost to run a Reddit app, or how much it would cost per person to realistically run a Reddit app where the users are what would be considered active to a level that um, you would likely have to be active in order to like really be using a Reddit app. Um, and the rough estimation is you'd probably have, as a user, you would probably have to pay somewhere in the neighborhood of about uh, probably $15 a month. And the reason for that is kind of a combination of the fact that app stores are going to take some percentage of your subscription in the first place, and the Reddit API usage by itself would probably cost between 11 and $12 per user. So by the time you paid that extra 30%, you're up to about $15. Um, which that's brutal. That is a lot of freaking money to be paying as a subscription to be able to use an app. Um, it's not
yeah, that's
insane for
like
it's not insane for
that,
some users. Some people would be happy to pay
yeah.
that, I'm sure, but few.
Yeah, if like your job is like interacting with Reddit communities, you're like, I can't use that app. I'm gonna, that that could be reasonable, maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
except bear in mind, if it were only people who were interested in interacting with Reddit communities, that's the person who also would cost even more. So
Right.
if it was only those people, that subscription would actually have to go higher. The only way it would make sense is if there's also a few people who are lower lower yield users that are paying the same amount but consuming less of the API. So
Yeah, and it's just like, yeah. So uh, even if it was practical, kind of the point coming across here is like, you as a Reddit app developer now have to not only maintain an app and charge for it, which kind of comes with like an elevated like sense of like support. Like if I'm paying for a thing, I would expect the person I'm paying to like be more responsive if an issue comes up or that kind of thing. So more responsibility there. And then because this pricing is sort of variable, like you're always having to check like, am I actually covering costs here? Like it does this still make sense? And now it's like, okay, well also, which is what helped kill a lot of like Twitter apps, is like, okay, now I'm dealing with like a completely different, the API is now a business model, and I don't know if I can rely on it in the same way. Like, who's to say, like, if I keep working on this app, which is like, more investment into something I don't have control over, next month Reddit could be like, okay, we're charging more, and it's like, well, great, now I'm stuck.
yeah,
So
well, or it might not even be necessarily that Reddit charges more or Twitter charges more or whoever. They could also make changes to their API, which by their very nature require you to make more API calls. Or they might add features which, uh, while regular usage might not really change, it might just, again, warrant more API calls. And that, all of a sudden your cost goes up, while to the end user it might not really even seem like that's like nothing's changed. So yeah,
yeah,
there's so many ways in which that is a risky business to get into.
and especially in mobile, you are dealing with an ecosystem that like is, a lot of people are just like actively hostile to subscriptions, which like
Hmm.
understandably, yeah, like everything costs more right
Yeah.
now. Like I'm not really going to add like a subscription for one app to use one specific website. Most people that doesn't make a lot of sense. So yeah, there's a lot of factors here, and
Also,
uh,
Reddit in particular, well, this was true of Reddit to an extent. This was also true of Twitter, but even Twitter is a little bit more accessible in this way. Um, at least with other types of things where you might pay for the API, let's use weather apps as an example. It's not unreasonable to cache some of this on your own server. So you could build up a cache of data to serve from that instead of making API calls. And that is at least a way to save some money, possibly like make it a viable business. With Reddit, honestly, like any any thread anybody's looking at is going to have new information every few seconds, every at least every couple of minutes. So you
yeah,
can't just cache you can't cache results like that. Not very effectively. Twitter, at the very least, if you know, like, if like a certain tweet is getting viewed a lot, you can at least cache that tweet. That's not unreasonable. But yeah, you just can't really do that effectively with these services. So there's no good way to save money or like work around the system.
yeah, and they announced that API price change, and basically almost immediately all the big app developers were like, I'm done.
Yeah.
um, Obviously the one that's been the most vocal here is the developer for Apollo. He was one of the first to call it. Pretty soon after, the Reddit sync guy was like, "I'm done too," which, and then also I saw I read the post from the Reddit is fun person that's shutting down. Which both of those apps I used for years, so that was like I haven't used them for a while, but it's still kind of them are like, oh, I like what you made like 8 years ago. That was pretty
Yeah.
cool. Good job. Um,
It occurs to me that I haven't. So I've been using Relay Pro, and I noticed no mention of that one has come up that I've seen. But I'm sure they're all basically gonna
yeah,
gonna shut down. Like there's no viable way they stay up after this.
yeah, and after all that, the Reddit CEO did a ask me anything thread about the API changes, which like everyone knew how this was gonna go. Like he was gonna answer like a handful of questions with like not very good answers, and that's basically exactly what happened. Um, Even besides the just like thing of like, there's so many factors here that like Reddit could address and fix, and it wouldn't be like detrimental to their business. Like, um, you know, better API pricing they could have done. They could have made this in a way where like Reddit has a premium subscription, and like right now all it does is like remove ads from the website and official app and like other stuff no one cares about. Like they could rework that to make it like a requirement for you to use third party apps. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me. Or like ideally if they did that they'd make it a little bit cheaper, because I think it's like 50 a year. um but yeah, like something like that. They could have worked out like a profit sharing system with third party app devs. I saw that brought up. Like there's so many ways they could have fixed that. um the main reason people are mad about this is because a lot of Reddit's core audience is using the third party apps because the official site and app are so garbage, and like to a point where like they shouldn't be this bad. Like it's not even like, oh, they have too many ads. It's just like the current Reddit site is so slow to load. When I'm on my PC, it just takes like everything is so slow. I could sort of like power through it on my M1 Max, but like it's still not very responsive. And like when you look at like the Chrome like dev tools thing, it's like, yeah, this site's really slow. You guys should fix this.
When
Um,
when someone is sitting here saying, "I need one of the most efficient and most like powerful processors available to the market right now in order to load your website."
Website, yeah. And it's like not
Yeah.
even like like it's a website. I'm not even talking about like, oh, we ported Google Earth to the web browser
Yeah.
and it only worked like it's literally just text, guys.
Yeah, this
It's
this isn't
text
like
and
some
videos.
hardcore web app. It's not
Yeah.
it's not Quake in the browser.
There's
This
no
is
machine learning going on here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that we know of. They
Yeah.
we don't know for sure yet. They could be crypto mining on every load.
Yeah. So like, the apps are bad. Last year there was a whole focus on like NFT garbage that no one wanted. It was, just like everyone else implementing NFT garbage. Um, so like, there's so many factors here on top of the fact that Reddit has been gunning for an IPO for the past like 2-3 years. So they want to be a publicly traded company. So they need to generate more profit, which is part of the reason we're here. And they're also doing other things that like are sort of prerequisite to having a high valuation on the stock market. Like they're slowly trying to push out a lot of like not safe for work content, because that stuff is like hard to like monetize in a way that's like something advertisers want to deal with. um or just like there's other potential issues there. So there's like so many compounding factors to the point where like this API change, like just it blew up. Like it shouldn't be this big of a deal, but because of everything else they've done, it is. And also the fact that like I don't know what it is specifically about Reddit, but Reddit users are just like completely intolerable to any changes. I
You
honestly
could have
like even if
stopped with
they
the
made
words in to any changes there,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Like it's so like Reddit has been such a fascinating like microcosm of the internet where I don't know of another like service that is maintaining an old version of their website for like many years because if they shut that off then a lot of people just refuse to use it.
mm-hmm.
Like it's almost the same situation as like Adobe having two Lightroom apps, but it's
Actually,
for a
good
social
comparison.
media service. So yeah, and I use both the new Reddit site and the new Lightroom. So I don't know what that says about me, but maybe that's interesting.
Wait, you don't use Lightroom Classic?
No, I mean I
Oh.
used it when it was the only Lightroom and it was fine, and then the new one showed up and it was like, oh, this has like almost everything I need except the watermarking stuff. Obviously, that was missing for a long time, and I would either go back or other stuff. But
You
yeah,
made your own tool for it, yes.
I made my own tool because also I was using Lightroom on like my tablet where there was never a Lightroom Classic. So um
Okay,
yeah,
so Carson, it's funny because I actually saw this headline. I didn't realize that it was Relay for Reddit that was responsible for this, but the developer has for Relay has actually popped up saying, "Hey, we could actually do or we're actually going to try to keep going." And the theory is that the monthly subscription could be $2 to $3. Um, what I noticed from this is, first off, he says that it might be achievable, which seems certainly a little not not a good commitment if you're saying it might be achievable. And it is very noticeable, I think, that he says specifically, quote, or quoting The Verge, he's reduced the number of API calls per user per day, and the new level of calls. There's potential to offer a subscription to the app at $2 to $3 per month. Um, However, the entire model is ultimately subject to how many and what type of users choose to stay with Relay as a subscription based app. Um, and it goes on to mention that it would be ad free and wouldn't have recommended content. I'm assuming recommended content is probably one of the API calls that is problematic. Um, but yeah, if you take Reddit down to its bare essentials of being able to basically load a thread and load, I'm assuming, which threads are there, you and presuming again maybe he's going to do some caching in the background on his own server, then that might make it viable. But the thing is, every Reddit user I know has a tendency to be pretty heavy duty. And I'm assuming that the developer here, I believe his name is Dave, I'm assuming that he probably is hoping that a lot of people who aren't heavy users will also be subscribers to sort of subsidize the heavier users. And that I think is probably going to not work great. Just a
yeah,
hunch.
yeah. It's not something I would want to deal with. And like even the I don't know if it was if this was from like the Apollo dev or the Sync for Reddit dev or maybe both of them, but like you do get the impression that like they're kind of just done dealing with this whole situation. Like it's a lot of stress, like especially when with with Apollo, and I know I heard this from developers of Twitter clients when that API shut down is like, if you're running a paid app or like subscription app, whatever, and it stops working, people are going to refund it because it's not working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're stuck with a bill from Google or Apple or whatever that is like negative, potentially several $100,000, depending on how big your app is.
That is, of course, assuming that they're recent enough purchases to still refund it.
Yeah.
Or the counter to that is if you have subscriptions in your app. If you have in-app purchases for subscriptions, I know Apple allows you to refund the entire year of a subscription, and so you could be really, really screwed on that one.
Yeah.
Google, I believe, lets you refund year subscriptions if it stops working. I'm not really sure on that one. But yeah, if somebody just bought an app, like obviously in the case of like Relay, there's no subscription there. So if you bought the app and it's past your return date, the dev gets to keep the money. And under the circumstances, I don't think anyone... Well, I'm sure there are some people who are angry, but I think most people are probably pretty accepting of that.
Yeah. So like that's just a lot of stress and uncertainty, and makes total sense that like even if theoretically you can keep going, like it sounds like the Relay dev wants to do, like I can 100% understand just being like, you know what, I'm good. I'm gonna I'm gonna make an app that isn't reliant on another company to continue functioning, or something that is more open and decentralized, like we saw with the big wave of Mastodon apps. Like none of those are really in danger of suddenly stop working, like Twitter.
Well, I don't know that I would necessarily go that far, but yeah, I think we're in a place where Twitter has truly and successfully lost most of its momentum, and it's gotten now negative momentum, and that is not changing. I think that is an indelible fact, and Twitter is, I don't think, going to die, at least not for a good long while. Though, I forgot to put that article in my list, but we could also make fun of the fact that Elon Musk is getting evicted. And who knows, Twitter might actually go down in flames just because they might not pay their data center bills. Or actually, we know they haven't paid some data center bills.
The Twitter is in a much worse position because it's being corrupted from the upper level management and from the user base.
I would argue Reddit is also being corrupted by those things too, but
well, yeah,
not in the same way.
It's very different. Like the experience on Reddit is very like containerized, where like you can have a perfectly fine Reddit experience depending on like which communities you're looking at. Like my Reddit honestly is pretty great because I don't have like any of the big ones in there. It's like all like retro computer stuff and memes. That's like most of my Reddit, and it's great. But Twitter is more like grouped together. Like you never really have like a main character of Reddit, but you have a main character on Twitter like on a weekly basis. Like it's a very different dynamic going on there. And Reddit has, to some extent, definitely not as much as I'd like them to do, they have pushed back against like really bad people,
the worst of the internet.
Yeah, there is a factor where like whenever they do a big crackdown on like neo-Nazi shit or whatever, like those people sort of just go to other places on Reddit and then make those a little bit worse. But
the problem I've always had with this is Reddit tries really hard to find that line where basically they said, okay, here's what 4chan will allow.
Right.
We want to come in just far enough underneath that no one directly compares us to 4chan. But everything up to that line, that's cool.
Yeah.
And you really get the impression that they're pretty happy to have everything up to that line. As long as they don't go over. The moment it goes over that line, all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we might look bad, and so
Yeah. Like
they'll flip around on that stuff.
yeah, like I know some of them got banned, but I'm sure there's still a couple like uh Trump people subreddits. I think the Donald Trump one got banned a while back. I think.
The Donald, it was
Yeah.
banned, but it came back, I believe.
Yeah. So yeah. So again, they're like slightly better at that, and then Twitter like is just Twitter's just Truth Social with a legacy user base now. Like
Yeah.
it's you can say whatever you want there. There like Elon Musk is like you can't even really make the argument that like Elon tries to make a lot, where he's like, oh, I'm just I want a space where the entire internet can come together or whatever. But like it's really easy for like anyone left of like Joe Biden to get banned, but he's sort of actively courting far right nut jobs, like allowing back a bunch of people who got banned, including Trump, and like actively working with like Ron DeSantis to launch his candidacy for the president on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
which of course went horribly wrong because Twitter Spaces was not built to do that, and running at reduced server capacity because again he won't pay server bills. So, yeah. So Reddit is I think a little bit of a different situation here than Twitter, but they're to the point where like I don't think I don't know if I can make like a statement that applies to it as a whole because it is so like containerized and different. But there's
Well,
definitely a different dynamic going on here.
the difference, I think, is that Twitter has always been a thing that is still, I know this sounds weird, but it's always been a thing that is still owned by Twitter. Whereas Reddit has always kind of been a thing owned by its users.
Yeah, Reddit has used unpaid labor to
Yes.
maintain its communities for over a decade.
Um, yeah, and in fairness, I know this isn't really the point, but I want to quickly call it out. You call it unpaid labor, but there are a lot of those channels where the moderators have found, let's call it other forms of other forms of compensation,
Right.
alternate methods of getting paid. Um,
And some of the mods on like the larger communities are actually like Reddit employees, but
yes, that
it's
does
definitely
happen.
definitely the minority.
But yeah, like
Reddit is owned by the elitist mods.
kind of. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's been both some understandable and acceptable means in which some mods have kind of profited from it, and there's also been some that have just straight up like taken bribes um or worked out arrangements with others. So it's not as if all of them are there completely out of the goodness of their heart or a interest in supporting community. Some of them are doing. Some of them are very much getting something out of this.
Some of them are the mods on the far right subreddits.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Sadly, also a lot of the tech Reddits and a lot of the art Reddits I've heard have also had problems with this.
yeah,
Um, Regardless, uh, the thing is, and I think that Red Dark uh, tally that was going on, and it still is. This is still fully live. Um, it shows all the subs that remained or that have gone private or restricted in some capacity. And I at its height, I know it had crossed 67,000 or sorry, 6,700 out of 88,000 or 8,800. Why am I wanting to call everything 5 digits when it's 4? Anyway, point is, massive overwhelming percentage of the subreddits ended up going dark during the 2-day hiatus. What I find interesting is there's still 5,800 that are dark. So almost 2/3 of the subreddits are still either private or restricted. And if you're watching this at all right now, some of them are still going live, and funny enough, some of them are actually bouncing back and forth between private and restricted. So who knows? But
yeah, I've seen a lot of discussions. Like some of the subreddits are just staying completely closed, and some of them are back open, but they've changed the settings where like there's no new posts.
Yeah.
So they're just sort of read only, and there's still ongoing discussions at most of these places, because the protest was supposed to go for 2 days, which I'd argue maybe wasn't a good coordination effort, because when you set a end date on your protest, it kind of just encourages them to wait it out.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the CEO said.
Yep. I even have that one open.
After that blackout was planned, then they did the AMA, which made it was really bad. I have it out here. I'll send you the best way to look at the answers is look at the profile of the CEO. I'll send that. There you go. But yeah, and it goes over because this is such a stupid decision. They've already had to carve out exceptions. The
God,
official Reddit.
Slow.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're on the new Reddit, you will have to click read more after that first comment, because then the other comments on the profile are for other posts. I don't know why they made it that way, but it goes back to the original point. So they've already had to carve out exceptions, because the big one is that the official Reddit site and app allegedly are dog shit when it comes to accessibility and compatibility with screen readers and stuff. So they've already had to be okay, we won't kill the third-party apps that are built for accessibility requirements. It's okay, you really don't kill them at all then, because there were a lot of apps that were better than the Reddit app to some extent there. And they've had other issues where a lot of the mod tools using these APIs are better than what Reddit's built, and it's legitimately difficult to moderate some communities without those tools. So they're doing some half-ass thing where I think some of them get to live. I don't remember. And there was again more backhandedness at the third-party apps. Direct quote here is when someone was asking why it kind of felt abrupt, the CEO said 2 things happened at the same time. The large language model explosion put all Reddit data use at the forefront, and our continuing efforts to rein in costs to make Reddit self-sustaining put a spotlight on the tens of millions of dollars it costs us annually to support third-party apps. And there was another one where he was Reddit's not profitable, unlike some of the third-party apps. And I'm okay, buddy. And this is after, again.
God, Reddit's site is so fucking broken.
It's really bad. And again,
I can't even find the thing you were just quoting.
I do think it is very possible that just a site like Reddit, where like you have one product and it's a free website, like I don't know if that is a sustainable business anymore. Like there's no one's really making money doing that. Like even like Facebook has to monetize it with just like the most heinous privacy violations you can imagine. Um, like it's really just it might just be like federated stuff like Mastodon, where the server costs for a lot of small individual servers are lower. Like that's the only way this can be sustainable. But you can't say, "Oh, we're hurting for money." After again, they spend so much time and money on stuff that their user base does not want. Like they don't want in it like NFT profile stuff. They like I see people making fun of the like stupid Reddit reward things all the time. Like they just keep doing the most bizarre stuff. And I know some of it, like if I was gonna be completely disconnected, like I could see some of the logic in like this can make money. Like there were a lot of stupid people putting a lot of money into NFTs. Like it's very possible that they could have got enough like suckers to like make that a profitable venture, but it became very clear after like 4 months that that wasn't going to be the case for forever. So
For what it's worth, and I'm not defending Reddit here, even though it probably sounds like I am. For a while, every person running a company was seemingly convinced that crypto, especially as NFTs, was somehow this money printing machine. And that if you wanted to be successful, you basically had to do it. It's, kind of like AI now. All you have to do is hold a keynote and say AI a couple hundred times, and your stock prices go through the roof.
yep.
Like that is a strategy that has worked for Google and wait, I guess not Facebook, but well, you get it. It's a strategy that's working for the companies that are doing it. Apple didn't say AI a bunch of times, and its stock price tumbled during its keynote. Granted, it didn't help that they waited as long as they possibly could to start talking about a headset that everyone actually wanted to hear about, but yeah. Anyway, so in their minimal defense, again, not even a defense, Reddit jumped on a bandwagon. They jumped on way too late, and it really did not work for them. And they didn't have a good strategy for even how to make money from it. But they at least jumped onto a bandwagon thinking that there was somehow going to be profit behind this. So, it was a profit-seeking venture that didn't work out. And that's going to happen.
Yeah, but that was decision number 500 of things that their user base didn't ask for that all sort of compounded to get to the situation.
And with the double irony that it is now a weight that is going to just continue costing them for who knows how long. Yep. Congrats for finding a way to lose money.
Yeah, Austin said, do we really want AI trained in Reddit data? Reddit chatbot would make Tay look like Michelle Obama. Again, it like depends on the community. Like again, if they're training it on the far right Reddits, like no, obviously not. But like for better or worse, there is information on Reddit that is pretty invaluable. Like especially when you get to like
some of the scientific subs.
Right, the scientific subs, some of the like technology, smart home stuff, like a lot of like repair Reddits, but like again, it is based on who's running the subreddit and the quality of the people who are speaking with authority. But
some of the I can see this for some of the programming subs. Certainly like the DIY, those subs makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I could see that. I feel like even smart home, you're starting to stretch it, but sure. The thing is, and I remember saying this pretty blatantly back when there was a lot of talk about various sites suing the chatbots, basically saying, "Hey, you're training on our data. We don't accept this. We don't allow it." And the two biggest names that were throwing that accusation around were both Twitter and Reddit. And my immediate reaction is, you got to be kidding me. There's no way in hell anyone wants to train their chatbots on those two sites. The sites with the worst writers on the internet, excluding 4chan. There's no way someone wants to actually train on both of those. I mean, I could see it with Reddit more than I could with Twitter, but I think both of them are disasters in terms of trying to train a chatbot.
Yeah, Twitter doesn't really make any sense to me because everything on Twitter is like, it's more like temporary.
Yeah,
I guess is the word I'm looking for. Like,
and most of it's
not,
reactionary. It's not.
yeah,
It's not really contextual where it makes sense to even train a chatbot. Like you would have to rebuild an entire conversational thread and make a ton of assumptions based on timing in order to even start making that sort of training data usable. So yeah, I don't even buy for a second that anyone was training anything on Twitter. Reddit, again, I can see it more.
There's pockets that are very useful.
Yeah,
But they're
yeah, but you have
really,
to curate
have
the hell out of that.
Yeah. Don't train it on the Donald, please.
Well, not just that, but I feel like you'd have to go almost comment by comment and strip out garbage. Otherwise, you're going to have let's be honest, otherwise you're going to have a chatbot that's like, you ask a question and its immediate reaction is first.
Yeah. Or just, or where like everything is like an unfunny person's attempt to be witty, because that was the other dynamic with Reddit, where because of the point system, you're sort of incentivized to like be clever in a way that's not helpful.
What if, God, what if it trained a little too hard off of some of the right subs on Reddit, and its immediate reaction is, "Hi, I'm a chatbot, and my purpose is this." Like if it just reflexively started acting like all the automated bots on Reddit. "I'm here to tell you how to spell whatever dumb word."
My name's Auto
Yes.
Moderator. How's it going? Yeah.
Oh, that would be epic.
Yeah, you definitely have to trade it. And yeah, like I don't really want to. I think talking about Reddit as like the Reddit quote unquote community as a whole is like completely impossible, because again, it is so containerized. You can't really make any generalizations, especially like because for the past couple of years, like, early on there used to be like default subs where all the new people would just be automatically added to, but they got rid of that years ago, so it's more diverged than ever at this point. So yeah, but like again, like I really don't like any of the larger subs, especially like I'm reminded of that like every couple months. Like a couple months ago, I wrote something on How to Geek, and that made its way to the PC Master Race subreddit, and there were at least like 50 people telling me to kill myself. So that wasn't fun.
Oh yeah, a wonderful group.
Yeah. Which again, that whole thing, it's like, yeah.
Well, and you know,
Master Race jokes, very, very funny.
Yeah. That particular circle has both its highly toxic aspects, but it also has its like just legacy. We don't mean anything by it. It just sounds bad if you take it out of context aspects. So, you know. Regardless, yeah, there's been so much of a separation in the types of users on Reddit. A friend of mine, I found out years ago, she was apparently a pretty big, or she had become a pretty big fan of Reddit. And when she said this, my immediate thought is, oh God, no. No, you're such a nice person. I don't want you hanging out on there. And then I heard her say that she was basically just hanging out in the art channels and some of the like funny meme channels, and it's like, oh, never mind. Okay, that's cool. Um, like if somebody's hanging out in certain groups, yeah, they're still really good. I don't want to say wholesome. That's stretching it, but there's some perfectly good sane subreddits. It's just there's also a lot that have gotten very toxic in various ways, either because they're hyper competitive or they've got very controlling mods who push whatever agendas they have, or they are political, or they're in some cases just very insular groups that kind of gaslight their members. Like, all of these things are very common on Reddit, but the problems vary from one sub to the next.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that AMA was really bad, which is what everyone expected, pretty much.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the CEO, as he apparently told the employees, the blackout will pass. Which
there was he sent a letter to the employees, which leaked, and it was basically like, no, we're not going back on this. We think this will eventually blow over, which, like, yeah, probably,
yeah,
to an extent, yeah, it will. Again, like, it's not going to be immediately clear, like, the long-term damage, because now you have a lot of people looking at Reddit as like, this doesn't seem like the best platform for, like, either, like, as a user, like, that I want to engage in, because again, now I can't use my favorite app or whatever, but also from a perspective of, like, a community. Like, if I'm, like, there's a lot of YouTubers and podcasts and other stuff that have, like, a official or semi-official, like, Reddit. Like, is that a platform now I want to invest, like, time and money and energy into, or do I need to go, like, set up a forum somewhere, or invest more in Discord, or like something like that? So that kind of stuff is going to take longer to process out, and I definitely don't think, like, I think for now the action against, like, Reddit is still in a much better position than Twitter.
mm-hmm.
From a platform perspective, like, I think they are going to lose a lot of its most I don't know what the word is, like, most engaging users, like people who use it the most active users. That's what I was looking for. And maybe others will make up the difference. Maybe they won't, but they aren't quite, like, calling up Andrew Tate and DeSantis yet and being like, hey, can you please post to Reddit more? Like Twitter is. But and the rest of the letter was like, I like the line in the letter where he's like, try not to wear Reddit merch in public because you might get attacked. That's paraphrasing, but he said, verbatim, I'm sorry to say this, but please be mindful of wearing Reddit gear in public. Some folks are really upset, and we don't want you to be the object of their frustrations.
I'm going to say that's probably the only part of this entire letter that actually I can get behind him saying it. I think that was probably the only part that was said with any sort of awareness,
not selfishness.
Yeah, that too. And awareness, both from the perspective of, like, hey, our employees are important and we actually do care that you don't get hurt, but also right. Awareness in the context of like, actually not being wrong about something. Like, pretty much everything else that is said in this letter is in some way actively wrong, or very short-sighted. Well, I mean, very literally, the starting sentence is starting last night, about 1,000 subreddits have gone private. I don't know when he wrote this, but holy crap, that was outdated by the time he sent it, because the numbers went through the roof very quickly. So,
Yeah,
uh,
and like there was something in this about wasn't there something in this about advertisers, or is that another comment? I don't even
well, he
really
did
see.
say that at the end of, I believe, or sorry, it was the second paragraph. It was just one sentence, but it says, "We have not seen any significant revenue
Yeah,
impact so far, and we will continue to monitor."
which is like such a weird thing to say, because like I don't really know what that was about, because advertiser, like, your site isn't less advertiser friendly because like parts of it just got randomly shut off, like until the point where the ads don't actually have like engagement anymore. Like that doesn't matter. Like they might make less money, but it's very different from like Twitter, where advertisers all pulled out because instantly the probability of their ad being next to like Andrew Tate was like exponentially higher overnight, and
I,
that's
I
very
like that
different
that's
than
your
what happened.
go-to for something bad. Never
Well,
mind that
it's
there
something
are,
bad, and also he's on there. Like they let him
yeah,
back in.
but never mind that there are like people who attack the Capitol building
Yeah,
that are also still on there and very active. And I think advertisers really don't want to appear next to that either.
yeah.
Anyway, um, but yeah,
Yeah, and like who be brought up, of course, there's been no revenue impact as well. Ad buys don't happen on a daily rolling basis. Yeah, like
yeah,
it
exactly.
was like 2 days. Everyone already bought their ad campaigns and they're still rolling, and they get paid based on like you know views. So like as long as like the content is visible, which didn't apply to private subreddits, like it's still the same equation. So yeah,
Yeah,
so that one made no sense, and kind of seemed like I don't know. Maybe if I'm being generous, maybe someone at Reddit like was looking at the similarities with the Twitter situation and was like, "Wait, Am I gonna lose my job because advertisers pull out of Reddit like they pull it out of Twitter?" And maybe he was trying to address that here, but again, it's not really related to what's going on.
I so I have a few theories on this. They largely still come back to the money and the sort of the greed, I guess, actually is the better way to say it. Um, I think he's trying to put on a brave face for the purpose of saying, "Hey, we're fine, we're good. There's nothing that's going to stop that IPO from happening." Um, which obviously isn't really true. Not when pretty universally everyone knows that the company's not really making money, at least not sufficiently. So yeah, I think they're struggling to make this work. And the fact, going back to that very most basic thing, that this is going to blow over. I mean, I agree. I think it will. I do think this will blow over. Very notably, it hasn't yet. Not really. I mean, there's still, again, somewhere in the neighborhood of almost 6,000 subreddits that have not fully gone public. And, that number is probably a little bit off, seemingly actually very off by some accounts, but it's still got to be several thousand. Um, and these are subs that are holding strong, um, at least many of them, because by now they should have gone public if the stalemate was only supposed to go for 2 days.
Yeah,
So I think that's a little symbolic that this isn't just going to be a lightweight thing. This isn't going to be just Reddit users and mods bending over and taking it. Um, and I think the CEO the CEO needs to keep holding this image that Reddit will just move forward this way, because that's what worked for Twitter. It didn't work for Twitter, but that's what the perception is.
Well, like it didn't. Well, that's what's so interesting is like Twitter has done about like 30 Reddit level events like this already, and like it still has a lot of active users, and like Mastodon hasn't completely killed it. So like if you wanted to be you know, try to be like, I don't know what the word is, but you could like make the argument that like no, Twitter's still fine, and like, you know, not every single person shifted to Mastodon or whatever, but like that's not really the point. The point is like it's now more damaged of a brand, and now you have people looking at it like, is this something I want to invest time and money in? And more importantly, like every one of these events has boosted open source and federated alternatives. Like Mastodon is going to be a definitely not like a top social media platform probably ever because of the way it was built, but it's going to be a solid alternative for a very long time, or whatever replaces it. You know, like Mastodon replaced I think it was GNU Social, and like using the same exact protocol, and then it created a protocol that other stuff invented. So like Mastodon, this like nebulous like Fediverse network has already been around for like 10 years basically. So this is all like helping secure that and give it more of a user base. Definitely not going to replace larger stuff, but that's something that is actively happening. And the Reddit stuff and Twitter stuff, and how Discord's been trying to maneuver the past couple of years, I think all adds up to this really interesting phenomenon that I don't know what the implications will be, but there is like a slow collapse of these centralized platforms happening. And because like ultimately, like, yeah, like you can't, when they have to make money because you are a business, you need to do things that a lot of the user base doesn't want you to do, and then you're stuck with just floating on VC money for as long as you can until you collapse.
Yeah.
Unless, you know, again, like if you're Google, you can subsidize it with a million different things. If you're Meta, you can subsidize Facebook with other stuff. If you're Amazon, you have AWS, you know.
Well,
but I think that the equation's much different with like Twitter and Reddit.
It's funny.
And again, like
it's funny that these two are so or that Reddit and Twitter are so closely linked, because what you're describing right now was kind of Twitter's business model for several years. They kept accepting money from investors, and then like some of that money would get invested into Twitter, but they, in many instances, they took the money from investors, went and bought other companies that were profitable, made a little bit of money profiting on them, upgraded those companies, and then resold them for a big profit. Like, or just
shut them down. Like they bought Vine and did almost nothing with it, and then it died.
Yeah, that was a clear screw up. But
and they bought Periscope, which like
another clear screw up.
Like that was, well, I don't know, like live streaming was like a thing for a little while, and then it kind of just,
it was, but I don't think they ever made any money off of that one.
No, there was never like I don't think there was ads or anything like that.
But no, like they bought Crashlytics and eventually resold it to Google, and we don't know how much they sold it for, but by all accounts that was a massive increase in value. So they made good money selling that to Google, which eventually became part of their Firebase diagnostics package, basically. So you know, Twitter literally banked on we've got a popular thing, it's increasing in users, come give us money, and we promise there's a way that we'll make money from all this. And they basically were running a scam. Jack Dorsey was effectively a scam artist, and a very good one, all things considered.
Yeah, and again, like, and I'm saying this from the perspective of like, it is borderline impossible to run a social media platform as like a standalone entity if you are operating as like, we need a lot of profit. Like if you're in that mentality of like, yeah, I'm a company, I'm gonna have a, you know, big profit at the end of the day. I want my CEO to have like a paycheck of millions and millions of dollars. Like, you know, like you can do this. Like that's what Mastodon is another system like this are proving. Like you can have this, but just it doesn't cooperate with capitalism. Like you have to separate some of that out. Like maybe if Reddit was like a, you know, worker-owned collective or something, it'd be fine. Who knows? But
Yeah,
it's not. It's a company that's like trying to shed dead weight as fast as it can so it can file for an IPO, while being under. Are they still under Condé Nast? I don't
oh,
know.
I have no idea. I didn't know they were. um but
Oh no, they did. They did spin it off, I think.
okay. What stands out to me, eh, or the feeling that I have had, because I think people have known officially that they've been trying to get that IPO. I'm pretty sure that that became like public knowledge back in like 2019, maybe
Yeah,
2020, something like that.
it's been a while. Yeah.
Um, and I mean, they've changed CEOs what, twice since they decided that they wanted to get an IPO. Maybe I've got that wrong, but I know they've gone through quite a few CEOs just a couple years back. Anyway, the feeling I have had is that every decision Reddit has been making feels like one of those things where it's like watching somebody. It's like that scene in a movie where someone is chasing like a train or a car or something like that. They're chasing on foot and they're just running as hard as they can, and they dive. Like they make that cinematic dive where they're trying to grab hold of the train just before it's out of reach, and either they miss it and like eat gravel when they land, or they catch it. And I feel like Reddit has been in that perpetual like mid dive for a good like 2 years, as it's just out of reach. They want to get that IPO, but they just can't get there. And to some extent, I almost think give them the IPO that way, because the CEO, let's be honest, as soon as they get that IPO, the CEO is going to be like, cool, peace, y'all, I'm out. At which point, Reddit could actually suddenly maybe be put in the hands of someone who actually wants to do something with it, good, usable.
Yeah, but then it's, you know, like, again, you go back to the problem where like all the app devs are done, like they're sick of this shit.
Yeah.
So even if they, you know, suddenly like that's why I think like the protest shouldn't be so focused on like we want our ass back, because like some of those are just gone. Like, you know, if I you know, I know 100% like if I was the Apollo dev and I've had to go back and forth with Reddit over the phone in what appears to be very vague phone calls and statements over and over again, and you know, I was looking down the barrel of like all these Apple refunds, I'd be like, no, you know, I don't need this anymore. I'll do something else.
Okay, I'm gonna spit a bit of an odd theory at this. I think Apollo's dev, if here's the scenario. I think if Reddit were to eject the current CEO and declare that this policy was going to get reversed, I bet the Apollo dev would declare victory and be right back immediately. Like that would be the moment of like, no, I won. Now let's, and look at me. I was the face of this. Let's go, everyone. Let's do this thing. And I bet he would be full scale back into it. The Reddit is fun dev. Like that one, when that announcement was made, I got a distinct feeling that that was a pretty clear, like, no, look, this is just business. I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah.
And I think that developer would not come back.
Yeah, I could see some of them coming back because again, like these are very popular apps. Maybe it depends on like what their, you know, other jobs are or whatever. Um, but like it would be a calculated risk. That I can see people not wanting to engage with.
Yeah, Reddit is forever and pretty much always going to be poisoned at this stage. I mean, this is the same thing that happened with Twitter years and years ago when they decided to implement the token limits.
Yeah.
Like once it happens, that course is set. You know what road you're on, and you pretty much always are going to live under that like dark cloud. It will follow you around as long as you continue developing for Reddit. You just know at any day they might just on a whim say, you know what, this has been fun, but yeah, we're taking this away, or we're gonna cut off a bunch of your capabilities and charge you to access, or we'll just cut off a bunch of capabilities, leave it only for our own app, and that's just the future. Yeah, any of these things could happen, and that leaves you pretty much screwed. Oh my god, the terrible wait is over. Horror movie nudes just went public again. Sorry.
What? Oh. Hoopy said, my theory is we're just reaching a reckoning for social media companies. It's hard to be profitable and free without being the social media site a title Facebook/Insta isn't going to let go of anytime soon. Yep. I mean, that's sort of the point I was making.
Yeah.
And again, like unless you're like attached at the hip to some other company with a much more profitable business model, like maybe it's time for Google Plus to make a comeback. I don't know. You could try that again.
You know, we keep joking about it, but seriously, A, please do that. B, I genuinely do not believe for a second Google ever wants to bring that back.
No.
And I don't think they want to get back into the like classic social media game. I think that ship has sailed. In large part because I think they already have enough trouble with Congress and they really don't want Congress breathing down their necks for another thing. And
yeah, like the EU is like threatening to break up their ad business again.
Yeah. They already have enough trouble. Why ask for more? And C, they already have a very giant social network site, YouTube. I know people don't think of it as social networking, and even YouTube at this stage, I would argue, is trying to be anything but a social networking site. But it is. It has all the hallmark traits. It's just in a very different like UI shape. But if anyone tries to really make a distinction between, let's say, Instagram and YouTube, you're pretty hard pressed to do it. Like,
yeah,
you post a graphical thing, likely a full scale video now because that's what Instagram has become, and people comment, and the whole thing is a big recommendation engine that keeps you there. Tell me, what's the difference? And everyone calls Insta social network. For some reason, people don't say the same about YouTube. I'm just saying there is no difference. Except one of them has good content and the other one is Instagram.
Yeah, and my coherent take on this, besides just hard left views on capitalism out of the situation was I did write an article. I'll dump it in the YouTube chat, just kind of making the case of like, hey, RSS readers are still a thing, guys. They still exist. Because like
Fewer and
that
fewer
is,
sites are making RSS available, but sure, yes, the readers are still there.
yeah, it's very it's very interesting because like I started using RSS again more after, well, I started using RSS again more like way before Twitter collapsed, because even before it was collapsed, it was a garbage way of keeping informed on news, because ultimately it is a very long timeline that you probably don't read all of. Most people don't. Stuff gets reposted constantly, and the stuff that doesn't just kind of gets faded into the background. You never see it. Like there are a lot of apps and emulators and stuff that I like that publish like blog posts and updates, but I would never see them on Twitter because like it would just be like at some weird 4 a.m. my time, like at a point where I'm not even looking at Twitter, or something else gets in the way. So I was already getting it back into RSS for some stuff like that because Twitter was garbage. Then after I stopped using Twitter for the most part, I tried to ramp it up a little bit more, and I did not really use Reddit for like uh, news because it was as garbage as Twitter for basically the same reasons, and arguably more because like you don't really like pick your sources there. The communities that are about like you know world news or U.S. news or whatever, like it's just people posting like whatever sites they want, and you see if it gets upvoted enough. Um, so I didn't really like Reddit for that purpose anyway, but some people use it for that. So in light of Twitter and Reddit going down the hole, you know, for some stuff, RSS is great. Definitely not 100% of my use case of what Twitter was and what Reddit still is, but it's an option that I think more people should have in the back of their head. Like, this is an option. It won't randomly die one day, you know. um, Could be said, Corbin, what do you mean you don't want to read 7 Salon articles about how you have a duty to vote for Biden? Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. Uh, that's not too far off from what I see on the Firefox new tab page when I forget to turn off the recommended
It's
stuff.
truth.
Yeah. But yeah, like right now in my RSS, again, I'm using Feedly for my personal stuff right now, and I've got like some news in there. I've got a couple blogs I like. I've got like 2 web comics. For the moment, again, don't know if this is changing, but for the moment, Reddit still has really solid RSS support, so you can turn any like post from a certain user or post in a community into an RSS feed to see in your RSS viewer, which is nice. But again, who knows when that will get ripped out, because that's kind of an API too. So you know,
So, yeah. Um, it if I'm gonna go with any takeaways, I've got two. One of which is a little bit meta on this, but the first, at this stage, I think it's pretty safe to say Reddit has, while Reddit is, yes, coming back. The CEO is entirely right. This will blow over. I think in practical terms, we've now seen Reddit make a semi-fatal mistake. They did something that is going to actually start people moving away. It will not happen overnight. It will not happen quickly, in large part because fact of the matter is people are going to keep finding Reddit because of Google search results. And a lot of people just have a habit and they like going there one way or another, even if they don't have good apps for it. Reddit isn't going anywhere quickly. Uh,
yeah, and like personally, like I'm not rushing to stop using it necessarily. Like I don't use it as much as I used to, just because again, like the the sites and apps are not very good.
yeah.
Um, but it's something I look at like, every once in a while. It's not something I'm looking at as much as I used to.
Yeah, Carson mentioning he's been using Google Cache pages for results for
Yeah.
this week. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying the same thing. But the practical reality is Reddit isn't going anywhere quickly, but I think this incident was it's that moment that is going to push a lot of people to start looking elsewhere. Maybe they won't move right away. Some people did. Like, there are people who've already gone over to Limmy. If you haven't heard of it, it's the federated, like, Mastodon sort of approach to this. Though I would argue it is a lot greener. It is certainly less evolved than Mastodon was when the Twitter stuff went down. And
Yeah, Mastodon had like several years of like pretty hardcore development before.
Yeah, and even then I would say it was pretty green. Like it got a lot of its stuff worked out only in the last few months. Whereas Limmy is in that place where it's like it's barely past alpha stage, I would say. But that said, like, people clearly, like, there is motivation now to go elsewhere. If only in so much as people now recognize that this is just how things are going to be from here on out. Things with Reddit are just going to now be a little bit more broken. There are probably a lot of mods that are going to leave. There are likely, I think, because if you're watching, I've got the Red Dark site still open in the view. If you're looking at this, like, there's still certain really big subreddits that are staying restricted, even if they're opening up. Like, you can now go in and look, but you can't post. I mean, our gaming is still restricted. Art, jokes, these are still restricted. Gifts still restricted.
Honestly, like, it's for the better of all mankind that gaming stay closed. Let's be honest.
Actually, here. Yeah, that's probably true.
One can stay closed. I won't feel bad.
And there are also several of these that are staying private at least a little bit longer, if not maybe a lot longer, including the very top sub, are funny, which okay.
That one can also stay.
Yeah, we're not necessarily losing anything in some of these, but no. The reality is, obviously, some of these are probably going to reopen. I have a funny feeling at some point Reddit will take action and just simply take away the ability for restricting or taking subs private. They might just assign some new mods and say, tough luck, you guys didn't really suit our needs anymore. They might change their policies to just say, if you run a big enough sub, too bad, it needs to go public or something like that. Who knows? I have a feeling, though, at some point they're going to flex their muscle, and that is going to drive away more mods. And who knows? In some cases, that could be a good thing. Some of those mods suck. Our Android, for example. I had to get that in one way or another.
No, I'd be disappointed if you didn't. I still fucking hate that place.
Yeah, some of those mods were just the worst. And holy crap, corrupt. In case it's not obvious, that's exactly who I was really referring to when I said that some of them had other sources of income or remuneration. Anyway, am I using that word right? Who cares? Anyway, yeah. So all of this, I'm really just leaning back to the point of saying, I think people recognize that this is that moment where Reddit is chasing people away. They either are going to have to do a lot of things to sort of win back trust and love from their users and their mods, or if things just continue the way they do and this CEO, by all accounts, does not seem like he's going to change course. He seems like he's perfectly comfortable to continue just acting this way and pushing this direction. It's going to send people away, and I, react to that however you like, but I think that's the future. We can just expect to see Reddit now in a persistent, slow but persistent downward trend.
Yeah, and honestly, I would not be surprised if some large company starts suddenly working on a Reddit clone, in the same exact way that Meta is currently testing a Twitter clone that uses ActivityPub. And like, I did see one person I know making the point that like Google would be kind of stupid not to, because Google search results are so dependent on content in Reddit that like really that information should be like in their control, ideally, if they want a good product.
Possibly.
So like I could see, I mean, Google kind of already has some of the infrastructure for that, but
Yeah.
it'd be interesting.
Yeah, and if there was any company that's actually in a good position to sort of how Apple is infamous for Sherlocking stuff, and like Facebook in particular is infamous for copying features and services from other places. This is one time where Google needs to, I guess I'm going to call it Snapchat, because everyone's ripped off Snapchat. Google needs to Snapchat Reddit. Like, they should just copy everything that is Reddit and put it out there. The only catch is they're so bad at any sort of moderation and control like that could go horribly wrong for them. But, it would make sense if maybe they created a spin-off company whose entire purpose was basically just to ape everything that is Reddit.
And honestly, if Google did it, I could see a world in which theirs is profitable.
Yes.
Just because they have so much, like even sort of Microsoft maybe too, but definitely Google. There's so much vertical integration that can happen, right? Like imagine like you're subscribed to a YouTube channel and you're just automatically dumped into the, Google community for the channel you just subscribed to, and maybe the person running the channel like talks to people in there. And maybe there's like a premium something subscription you can do that like adds features to all of those combined. And Google already has like Google Chat that is like technically for normal people now. You could integrate with that somehow, or like Reddit tried to do like a live chat thing that again no one cared about, but like Google could theoretically like just put that in like a couple days because they already run Google Chat for this. So like that doesn't seem crazy to me.
Google Meet.
And yeah. And Austin said, I mean, Google is impacted the most by Reddit. It's like 99% of their product support.
Yeah,
it's true.
Sadly. So
also, and Hoopy said also you have to imagine Google has a more effective ad network that can get economy of scale on server costs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean Google hosts like the entirety of the internet's videos, so
yes.
What's some mere text content,
Well, the entirety of the internet's videos minus porn. Which is quite a lot of the internet's video, to be fair. But
I mean, it might still be on Google. It might be in some Google Cloud instance somewhere.
But yes, regardless, obviously, there's no way not to agree between Google's search results, Google's advertising business, both of which would be direct beneficiaries of Google running its own Reddit clone. And then, as you mentioned, like tying it into YouTube. Obviously, they could even make it a support network of various kinds. Hell, they could go so far as to actually like build this out as like a means of like bug reporting for the Android team. Like there are a million ways that they could build this up,
Yeah.
and probably even should try to do this. I don't know that that's a good idea because again, Congress will absolutely flip the f out if they did, but you never know. So my other micro quick observation in this actually has to do with Reddit crashing during the blackout. To most people, this probably won't make a ton of sense as I say this, but uh, you can tell this is a side effect of Reddit's development of microservices. Microservices, by and large, good idea, good structure. But if you build the interconnecting services so that they always assume that certain subs are going to be producing a lot of your like trending content, uh well, you better plan for that day when those aren't available. And that's, I'm pretty sure, exactly what happened. Once all of the major subs had gone offline, the trending content microservices had nothing to read from, which is rumored to be why this crashed. So, yeah, their developers anticipated problems, but I don't think they anticipated that one.
Yeah, it's just again like so many things you can go like I know I just spent like 10 whole minutes being like Reddit cannot possibly be profitable because of the way it's set up, but like they could get pretty damn close if they try. Like I was talking about this with a friend where like one of the things I've learned from reading all of like Google's blog posts from like the Chrome team and stuff is that Google has like so like Google has like Chrome developer relations people, like the people who like interact with the developers working on like React or big websites or whatever, and like try to figure out like what should be improved with their websites to make it a better experience in Chrome or whatever. And they've published uh, study after study after study that just boils down to if your website is fast and works, you make more money. You make a lot more money. Like because part of it is number one the equation that Google has purposely set up where if your website responds quickly, then you get bumped up in like Google search results because like they look for that. Like that's a metric of your site's value is how quickly it loads. I don't think that's a huge issue for Reddit necessarily because they just have so much momentum built up. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you're at the point where like people are filtering their entire search, to just be Reddit, like your site, like you don't really have to SEO that much more. But the other part of the equation is just that like it's just normal psychology. Like if a website is a piece of shit to keep loading, I'm not going to stay there for very long because it's an unpleasant experience. I'm going to do something that fills me with joy or doesn't make me actively frustrated. So like
Yes.
you could just make your website less terrible and that would immediately fix some of your like, you know, dire profit state, whatever the CEO wants to say. Like it really is that simple. And like again, I don't know if that would be enough for Reddit to be profitable. And again, there's so many other issues. But like again, there's so many better solutions to what they're doing now than like we will kill all apps a month after warning them, and then we will double down.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many other ways this could have gone, and they're not doing any of them. And like Hoopy said, if they removed a lot of the useless features nobody wants from the quote new UI, I'm sure they'd cut down a lot of operational costs. Yeah, I mean, like again, like you said, Cody, like all of the NFT garbage they have to keep running. I'm sure that's a whole infrastructure right there. Um, they were trying to do like live stream stuff for a while. I think they killed that there's a lot of stuff that Reddit does that no one cares about. That all costs money and time to operate and people.
Yeah. Um, and obviously, like, all of these companies have the ability to shed some dead weight. Uh, and unfortunately, sometimes we do also admonish them for doing that. It's the classic, like, oh, we want to save money, so we're gonna fire a few developers and various other support staff, and then everyone's like, oh my god, how dare you fire them? Meanwhile,
Right.
we're like, why are you wasting time working on these dead end projects that we all hate? Yeah, sometimes we get that kind of bad mix. But yeah, and
And then
Reddit's
sometimes you're Google.
oh, don't get me started. Um, it, please hire me. Uh, but yeah, all the same, Reddit is in that position where they've made so many really poor decisions, and it just doesn't look good. You can tell there's a smell to their decision making process, and the mere fact that the CEO didn't plan ahead and just let's say come up with a policy that would have supported the Reddit moderator bots, like mod bots and various assistive things. Those should have been obvious. And I'm sure there had to be somebody reasonably high up on the food chain who has to have been in the room, who could have and probably did say, hey, this policy has some problems, like we need to create some exceptions or something. Somehow the CEO didn't get that. Either he wasn't listening, or someone was afraid to say this to him, or maybe he only surrounds himself with really stupid people who also don't know anything about Reddit. Whatever the circumstances are, I don't know, but it stands out as a pretty clear sign that the decision-making process here is bad, and they're putting resources and effort into the wrong things. And obviously, like, we say that as users. Well, I don't. I basically don't ever use Reddit, but we say that as users. We don't necessarily know what their like situation financially is. We don't necessarily know what processes they're jumping through in order to try to for the IPO. Some of these decisions may be related, but at the same time, it's very, very clear that the CEO is not applying the best logic through these decisions.
Not the smartest decision making. And yeah, Hoopy brought up the CEO got caught editing other people's posts a while back to make himself sound better. So I wouldn't put it past his employees not being willing to disagree with him.
Yeah,
Yep, that did happen.
I didn't even hear about that. That
Yeah,
is,
that was. I think it might have been a year or two ago, but yeah, it was. It was the thing that happened. And yep, yeah, basically just boils down to capitalism. Great.
no. Honestly, I'm surprised Elon Musk hasn't taken that particular step.
He's gonna
He's
buy Reddit.
oh, actually, yeah, that too. Well,
I think if
that
you,
is the other big place that likes to criticize Teslas. So, sure, why
Yeah.
not?
oh man, E- Elon could give Mastodon just the greatest bump in users of all time. But killing both Twitter and Reddit. Holy crap.
And not only that, but yeah, then it's just nothing but right wing trolls doing what right wing trolls do. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be, oh god, that would be just. Look, I've never been a big Reddit fan, so I'm just saying, Elon, please buy Reddit. That would be kind of epic. you would be making my you'd be making my decade for the internet much happier. Like, this is the bingo card I never thought I could have. So yeah, all that said, I just I think that this mess is becoming more fun to watch, not less. Um, Obviously, we're kind of past the big show moment. Um, I mean, if you've been watching the counter that I've had on the stream a few times now, um, the number of subs that are still private or restricted has dropped by a little over 100 already, and it's continuing to shift. So a lot of them are coming back open, but that's not going to, not all of them are going to. A lot of them are going to stay restricted at the very least, and a lot of others have said that they just don't plan on reopening. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, like as much as I love to see stupid CEOs make mistakes, and Elon just continue to make the dumbest decisions and lose money over it. I do very much enjoy those two things, especially because in this country we have a very uh, low level like personality trait of like individualism where like we see like all these rich people's like, oh, they must be doing something right, they must be really smart. And I like that there's now many examples I can pick from,
Yeah.
and hopefully that mindset will start to go away, at least from people paying attention. It's not, so I appreciate that aspect. What I don't appreciate is obviously a lot of these platforms uh, did have very good use cases. Like again,
They mean something to a lot of people, and in a
yeah,
lot of instances they actually carried some good information and some
yeah,
archival value.
and they are like, and some of the like specific communities like are really difficult to replace.
Yes.
Um, so like I was bummed, when Twitter like slowly went to shit, but it's like I you know I prefer it didn't, because I met a lot of nice people there who I've now been friends with for like a decade. Um, and I didn't meet anyone in that way from Reddit, but I appreciated having some memes to laugh at when I was bored. Um, so like it does suck from that perspective. So I'm not quite like dancing on Reddit and Twitter's grave, but um, I do see value in how it's pushing for alternatives that are not run by corporations. There's an argument about whether that's sustainable either, like especially with a lot of like the bigger Mastodon servers like checking out because it's way too much.
Hmm.
But it does seem to be it's it, that kind of stuff is growing as an alternative, which I think is the more important part. Like these options exist, and with more people behind them and more resources and more funding, they are getting better and staying competitive with these types of platforms. So that's my silver lining from this situation is like um it sucks for the people using these places, and I'm very happy Elon is continuing to clown on himself, and it's nice to see more people in my Mastodon timeline.
So, I'm going to take that and turn it into a micro transition, just to call out something Hoopy shared actually quite a while ago. This is fairly late breaking news. Music publishers file a $250 million lawsuit against Twitter for copyright infringement and failing to respond to takedown requests. Um, and I'm just going to turn this into a very quick Elon bashing session, which I'm sure you want to pose.
Oh, please do.
But it was also just announced, and I mentioned this earlier, that he's getting evicted from his Boulder, Colorado offices, or well, Twitter is, for non-payment. We know that there's, if I understand correctly, something was already filed in the city of San Francisco for the same situation, because they're not paying their rent in any of these offices. So yeah, Twitter is facing more and more trouble as a result of its just general absurdity. They aren't paying their cloud hosting bills to Google. I believe it's just Google. I don't know. Like, I saw an article, I read it. It's sort of implied that this might be happening to Amazon too, but it focused on Google. I don't know. Anyway, apparently Twitter is trying to renegotiate its deal with them, and I find myself thinking, wait, your first step to renegotiating a deal is to say we're not going to pay you? Like, to me, that, like, if I was on Google's side, my first response would be, okay, well, cool, we're just going to cut off your service. Like, that's not how you negotiate with us. We're not interested in being paid less and also having you, trying to skip out on a bill. So, I'm just saying.
Yeah, again, like, he thinks he's so smart. He's like, oh, I know how to make more money. Simply don't pay bills.
Yeah. Which is a very Trump thing to do. Trump was famous for doing this.
Yeah, he's still doing it. That's why he can't find a fucking lawyer for his multiple federal legal problems now, because every lawyer's like, bro, you're not winning this, and also you will not pay me when you lose. So I'm not doing it.
Yeah, two of them quit as soon as the charges were unsealed. And the people that he picked up were practically last minute, one of which is apparently a close personal friend of Ron DeSantis. It's like, what? Really? That you can't write this stuff.
Is Rudy Giuliani not in the cards anymore? Because that would be hilarious if he did that again.
My understand. Well, first off, I don't think he actually can. Well, wait, it would be a federal charge. I don't know if he's allowed to get involved in that. I'm not really sure how that works with
I think
cases.
We should make an exception for this. I want to see that. That man is barely coherent.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you that. I actually would kind of enjoy watching how that would play out. So
he just starts negotiating for more time for Trump in prison out of nowhere.
I mean, that would be the right choice.
While his hair is melting again.
Oh, come on. I'm sure they wouldn't make that mistake. Well, never mind. Yeah, I'm sure they would.
He shows up to the wrong court. He goes to the lawn care company again.
Oh, that'd be rich.
He, instead of going to the federal court, he shows up at the set for one of the core TV shows. He's like, "Wait, was this not it?"
Judge Judy's like, "What? Yeah. What are you doing
Judge
here?"
Judy's like, "What are you doing here?"
We have good ratings. We don't want you on here.
Have we considered letting Judge Judy take this case? Is that also a possibility?
Okay, so I'm gonna say something.
I think this is something
I'm sure someone will immediately want to tell me I'm wrong, and technically what I'm about to say is wrong, but it's also not. She's not a real judge.
Right.
She's not a real judge. She's as much a judge as Dr. Phil is a doctor. Yeah. Anyway, I despise her. But that said, I think she is far more qualified than the person who got assigned. Just saying.
I think that would be the proper way to handle this. This is such a problem. So much is on the line that we have to handle it in the most American way possible, which is on a TV show that's 10 minutes long and has 10 minutes of ads. I think that's what we need to do.
Okay, no, if we're gonna go full America, you know what we have to do? Call in voting.
Yeah.
Yes. Vote every week. We will vote.
American Idol. Yes. Just vote on your phones now if you think this was a good.
Every week we will vote out one of the lawyers until there is only one left, and that is the one who gets to give their closing arguments.
I think this is the Biden and people like him keep talking about we need to like bring this country back together. I think that's how you do it.
Yes.
I think like a very uh, competitive, televised uh, legal court cases is how you do that. Austin said the Oracle did an episode on this. Yeah, I forgot about that. I
I
hope
don't think I've
has the
seen that
Oracle
one.
got renewed yet? It was the one where they go to the alien planet where like everyone is in like a perpetual popularity contest, and if you drop too low, then you get arrested.
Maybe I saw that one. Is that first season? Do you
Yeah,
know?
that was
Okay.
first season, and then they go back to it in the second or third, I think. But
Okay. So yeah, I guess I saw it. It's just been a really long time since I saw
yeah,
first season.
that was a long time ago.
I think I watched it like right after it came out, and I haven't watched anything since. I still need to catch up on it. Um,
Yeah, I
that
don't
said,
has that got renewed yet?
it's officially listed as on hiatus.
Oh,
Um,
Disney, come on,
well, on hiatus just
give.
means that it's probably coming back. They just haven't. I don't see a start date for a new season, so
Yeah,
who
it
knows?
hasn't been greenlit.
That's it.
I
Well,
they need to do it. They need to give Seth more money, please. The Orville is like the best Star Trek we've got in like 10 years. I needed to keep going.
I mean, yeah, I haven't watched any of the Star Trek since DS9, so you know, and I didn't even finish that. Just
Wow,
didn't. Yeah,
terrible.
it kind of
So
was.
yeah,
Um,
wow. Okay, that's it. I'm leaving.
so
I mean, I'm gonna leave anyway because I'm tired and need to eat food. But let's pretend it was because of that comment.
yeah, you shame. Um, I'll also, we're never gonna get around to that Apple game thing, are we?
No, I mean I can talk about it for like 5 minutes. I don't think it's like there's a lot to discuss here, so I can hit that quickly.
Um, okay, well, sure. And then I'll. Oh wait, did you want to talk about that Microsoft thing, the Win32 app security thing?
That can be a next week or a
Okay, yeah.
never thing. I don't care.
All right. Okay. In that case, yeah, we'll do this sort of follow up from last week's Apple event. Um, we'll do that. That'll close out you, and then I'll do a couple of closing statements on a couple of the little things, and then I need to take off pretty shortly too.
Okay.
Anyway, the super quick summary on this one is Apple made a game development kit translation tool. Uh, Basically, it auto ports things so that Windows games can run on a Mac. It is being compared to a Proton sort of environment. It's using source code from Crossover, which is itself based on Wine. It's according to some of the tests, it actually is really pretty efficient and pretty good at this, and it's able to like actually run DirectX 12 games. So this sounds really compelling. It has some catches. One, of course, being that a lot of games so far have the ones that have been tested have turned out to be sometimes fairly buggy, which is kind of to be expected. There's also been obviously some performance issues where some games perform really well, others just for various small reasons don't do as well. Anyway, the big catch I'm gonna call out right now is, at least as far as I heard a few days ago, no one has successfully been able to get Steam to run under this thing, and therefore they're not getting Windows games to install from Steam, which means that you can't run this translation layer on those games. And without Steam being there, those games also won't run. So So far, the biggest use case a lot of people have for trying to use this, it just doesn't work. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I saw a couple places getting excited over this, and I I I don't think it's what people want it to be. Um, like so, this was like one of two gaming things Apple talked about at DubDub or announced. I don't. They didn't mention this on the conference, but it was like, yeah, we got one more game for Mac, and we have this, and Apple made it clear in their like documentation and stuff that this is a prototyping tool. This
mhm.
is a thing that, like, let's pretend I'm Bethesda and I'm like, okay, should we bring Doom to the Mac? I don't know if it's on Mac, but let's pretend it's not. Um, first, first step here in this equation is like, will Doom run on a Mac? Like, does the average Mac have enough power where this makes sense from an economic standpoint to run our game? So in that case, if I'm Bethesda, I will take the Windows code that we have and maybe make a few very small alterations to run it in this game porting toolkit. And then I will create a demo that'll give me a base idea of what to expect. And I can go to my, Todd at Bethesda and be like, hey, Todd, we did this very quick port and Doom actually runs pretty well. We think that if we actually did this for real, it would run better, obviously, because it's not like a hack of the Windows app. And this proves that Macs can run the games. And Todd can go, okay, sure, go ahead and do that. Or I try this and it turns out the average Mac cannot handle Doom, even though it's a game from 2016. And that's the end of my, consideration for this. So like that's what it's made for. It's made to like figure out if Macs can run something or if like does does the game fall into sort of like expected hardware and software requirements. It is not Proton. Like that is a completely different thing. Like Proton and Wine and stuff, like that's on the user side. Like that's a thing where you take a application that already exists out in the wild and you do the hacks yourself and you make it run. And the key difference with Proton also in Proton's case is that it's developed and supported by Valve, who's running the storefront. So you don't have to worry about stuff like Steam not working or whatever with Proton because Valve is handling the required stuff there. This is just like a prototyping tool. And the only reason that like I think it's interesting at all is that it does appear to have really good DirectX support, which is something that doesn't really exist on Mac with Wine because Apple won't support Vulkan, and all of the work that's been going into Wine, particularly from Valve, but also from Codeweavers, which makes crossover. They do a lot of code contributions to Wine and Proton as well. The main issue there is like all of the work that's been done to support DirectX 12 on Wine has been to translate it to Vulkan. So the reason why Wine and current versions of Crossover can't really do DirectX 12 all that well is because you have to convert it again. You have to convert the Vulkan code to Metal, and Codeweavers has written like at least one. I really like Codeweavers' blog. They've written at least one article in the past that was talking about like some of the challenges with that, where there's some functions in direct or some functions in Vulkan that do not translate directly to Metal, and that's where they've had issues, and they've had to develop workarounds for that. So Apple has seemingly done a little bit of a better job with that than like what currently exists in Wine or Codeweavers, or I'm sorry, Crossover. And Codeweavers has talked about that they are working on versions of Crossover that are better at DirectX 12, and they're now looking at the game porting toolkit to see like maybe what if they can extract anything helpful from that. But this is not a this is not a proton layer. This is a prototyping tool that might end up being useful um, in some cases where like maybe wine doesn't make sense, but this is not a thing that like most people outside of a game publisher should care about. And that's where I kind of see a lot of discussion about this. I'm like, I don't think this is going to do what you want it to do.
So I think I think there's a bit of a mix across a few different angles on this. So for starters, yes, obviously, like this is how they pitched it. Apple didn't make any bones about the fact that they were pitching this as a thing for developers to use in testing their apps to, eh, I don't think it's as much about like will the performance be good enough. Though I'm sure to some extent that is part of the pitch. I think a big part of it is sort of like how can we show developers that their thing would be nice on here.
Right. Sure.
Like this is a proof of concept because a big part of the toolkit is literally like automatic translation of the code, the shaders, various other components that all matter. Like it does a lot of that stuff for you and leaves you with an actual output that you could then compile and use yourself or continue to tweak and improve upon. So there is definitely something to be said for that. And the catch to this is so many games have various DRM schemes or anti-cheat, anti-piracy, especially the anti-cheat stuff. Those things were never going to run in this. And so a lot of the games people obviously want to be able to play make heavy use of anti-cheat technologies. So, this was not going to be good for those anyway.
Yeah, and like that's been an issue on the Steam Deck because most of the popular games on there are running in Proton and their Windows games with anti-cheat, and the game developers either have to whitelist the Steam Deck, which is kind of insane, or they're like doing some other system where like, okay, we'll put you in like a less restrictive, state or something, but that doesn't really exist for like, broadly, because then that defeats the point.
Yeah. So then there's
and also with the with Apple's toolkit is like, I don't know if you could just package something with this and then put it on the App Store. I don't know if Apple would allow that, but even if like you could, you still have the issue where like the software is built for, if it's a game, it's probably Steam. You're using like Steam APIs and the Steam platform to do multiplayer stuff, to like verify purchases and like the sim stuff, and like you can't really interact with that stuff like while you're in this like environment. You would still have to do a lot of work, so it's not, it's not like, Bethesda will look at this and go, okay, great, we can just like click a button and all of our games can be on Mac. They're not going to do that.
Yeah. And something I brought up before, there are a lot of game studios that I don't believe that their objection to launching games on Mac has anything to do with the cost of development that would go into it, because depending on the game engine that they're using, they might not actually have a very high cost associated to developing it for Mac. But rather,
like if you're using Unreal or Unity or something, like that's all that has like Mac as a compiled target. Like you still have to do a little bit of work because you might have to like adapt something for the App Store, and that kind of stuff. But it's
the launcher. A lot of times, the game launcher alone is something a little more custom. But it's not just. What was I saying? Oh, damn it. I had it a second ago. You broke my stride. But yeah, Fuck. Um, yeah. So anyway, it's not just. Oh yeah, I remember. It's not just that you have to build something that's going to run on a Mac. It's that you then have to support it. Like a lot of companies, they would be willing to eat the cost of developing something if they think that it will make some sales to warrant it, but they're not necessarily prepared to also pay the cost of having to deal with and support it. Like having actual customer service people who can do something about this, or even just keeping like community managers who know enough to do this. Like you have to have people who use a Mac on a regular basis working at your company, and that has to be part of the equation. And the gaming industry, as it stands today, it's not a whole bunch
And
of, it's not
yep,
a ton of
and
Mac users right now.
you have to make sure your game continues to work in this weird hack of a compatibility thing. Like I remember years ago, I was playing Star Trek Online on my Mac Mini, and the Mac version of that game was in like a wine container. I think it was called cider, but it was like uh, a product sold to companies like the developers, where it's like, here's a wine environment, like we've built some like special tools so you can like package your Windows game or app to like be okay on Mac. And it was available on Mac for a long time, and but eventually they were like, we don't want to support this anymore, so the Mac version just went away.
Yeah.
And also with with Windows stuff running in a compatibility layer, you're also relying on the Rosetta layer in Mac OS, and we have no idea how long that's going to stay around. Like, I would hope it stays around for a long time, because the PC industry is never going to give that up for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And there's so much legacy software and tools that like are built for this architecture, but it is, Apple has not been afraid in the past to suddenly wipe out support for older stuff, and Rosetta is also a thing that has a hardware component. So maybe at some point they want to simplify Apple Silicon, and that part needs to get ripped out. So we don't know how long that's staying around. So that's another thing to consider. Is like, okay, if I want to like hack my game onto Mac in a fast way, like I need to have someone testing and supporting on Mac still. I need to hope that the compatibility layer keeps up with game engine development, and when we update our game, it doesn't break in there. And we need to make sure Apple doesn't kill Rosetta and whatever else. So this is just a prototyping tool. It's not really anything more than that. If I'm being generous, I could see maybe like someone makes a cool front end for this at some point. Like there are front ends for Wine that maybe make it a little bit more practical, and maybe someone hacks Steam onto there. I don't know, but it's not like I've seen some like pretty overhyped takes on this that I don't think are realistic.
Yeah. So
And
Carson asked about Rosetta having a hardware element. I hadn't heard that either.
my if I'm remembering this correctly, my understanding is that for some Rosetta operations, the Apple Silicon can shift its like registry format to x86 when it needs to. Like
Okay.
so it's sort of like virtualizing part of the x86 architecture, like the actual like hardware registers.
So this
So
could probably still be done in software. It's just
yeah,
they
yeah,
they
it was
may have
just like
added something to the M1 and M2 series
yeah,
specifically
like this
just to make
is
this a lighter operation.
yeah, like I'm sure you could do the same thing purely in software, just be slower. And that's part of the reason like Rosetta is so wild. Is like, wow, you really don't expect this to, like, when the first Mac showed up, and you're like, wow, why are they running Intel apps faster than Intel CPUs? It's like, well, yeah, you know,
So yeah, I could see all of this. some part of me has a feeling that this isn't as dependent on Rosetta sticking around. Like, maybe the sort of like no effort run version of this, where they were kind of just saying that it's in some cases like you could take your game and basically just run it through this kit and immediately start running it. Like, that version might still be dependent on Rosetta. But again, this is a development kit that's whole purpose is to help developers like just straight port their stuff. So it's certainly more than just a test environment that's dependent on Rosetta. How much more, I don't know. Like, there are a lot of details about what this is doing, how it's working, that haven't really been fully discussed, or at least not that I've seen. One thing I do feel the need to at least call out, we've been talking about this in the context of Steam, but we probably shouldn't leave out GOG as a subject, because at the very least, those are games that generally don't have a lot of anti-cheat stuff built in, and they typically don't have a lot of DRM built in, which is kind of GOG's whole thing. So yeah, I haven't heard a lot of stories about people using it, but I'm imagining that some of that stuff is probably also being ported. And seeing as GOG very specifically carries a lot of really old, like, things that are no longer actively supported in a lot of instances, I could actually see that being a really good story for being able to like pick up old games and play them on a Mac that you never would have otherwise bothered to play or thought much about playing.
Yeah, but those are also the same apps and games that work perfect under Wine right now.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, like, yeah, like I've bought a few games on GOG in the past year because, like, I know one game I have, Fallout 3, when I run it in parallels on my Mac, it will just crash immediately because of Steam, but the GOG version is fine. And so I picked up a few other games like that, and yeah, like all the, like, Wine is actually better than Windows at playing like older Windows games.
Mm-hmm.
Because 64-bit versions of Windows do not have the 16-bit compatibility layer. So if you go back far enough, you can't run Windows software on 64-bit Windows, but you can on Wine. So that's very cool of them.
Oh, that's something. And in point of fact, the two games that I actually have in my current GOG wish list are both games that I think they came out in the 90s. Well, they had to be in the 90s. Wait, was this possibly 80s? Oh, it couldn't have been, right? I'm looking.
I would like GOG to make an actual Mac app. I don't think they have one.
I thought they did. I honestly don't know.
They have Mac games, but I
yeah,
don't
they
know
definitely have Mac games.
I think maybe their current, like, Mac, like their client app doesn't work on Mac. I don't know.
GOG Galaxy 2.0 open beta requires Mac OS X 10.15 or newer.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, they at least they have a beta of it. I don't know if they had older versions that were not in a beta state, but I'm assuming this is probably
with GOG. You're always able to, like, download the game separately of a launcher or other things. So maybe they just had that for Mac. I don't know, but yeah. So yeah, and I would like to see GOG copy. They could just implement Proton because it's open source, but get that in their Mac client for the older Windows games. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, which also, full disclosure, both of the games that I have on my wish list happen to be Windows only. So,
yeah.
And as a Mac user, that's not the most compelling situation. Though both of them, I'm sure, would run incredibly well either under Wine or actually, I think one of these, maybe both of them are DOSBox.
Yeah, so you can just copy the files
Yeah.
to native DOSBox for Mac. Yeah.
Yeah, and in case anyone's curious, one of them is Fantasy Empires. It's a Dungeons and Dragons, like OG Dungeons and Dragons style thing. The other one's called The Summoning. It is, both of them are like fantasy RPG games. These are ancient. I mean, truly ancient games. So yeah, I don't know why I put them on there, because one of these days I might just get inspired to go back and, well, in the case of The Summoning, I'd actually like to finish that game because I never actually did. And in the case of Fantasy Empires, it was a weirdly enjoyable game, though I cannot for the life of me remember why.
I bought Fallout 3 on GOG and played some of that on my MacBook. Runs great in parallels. I also bought Tron 2.0, which was a game I'd never played before. And I got like halfway through it, and then I got to somewhere where I'm stuck, so I didn't continue playing. But it was cool the part that before I got stuck. And then I there was some sale where like a bunch of Star Trek games were very cheap, so I picked some up.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yep. Okay. Well, so that's my rant. Is like the people who are really excited about this are wrong.
Yes, as they often are.
What you should be excited for is Code Weavers to finish their version of crossover with DirectX 12 support. That will be very cool. And maybe work with Steam. I don't know. Steam on Wine is going to get probably more complicated because Steam is dropping Windows 7 support. So whatever APIs Steam needs are going to need to work well on I don't know how to finish that sentence, but usually when you're running Steam and Wine, you're like you're emulating the like lowest supported version because there's fewer APIs you need to worry about. Like I remember like just a couple of years ago, like you'd always run Steam in like Windows XP mode on Wine because it's just like, hey, you know, fewer things can go wrong because we've supported these APIs for a while. It's also how I was running Adobe Creative Cloud when I tried to make a installation script for that, and then Adobe fucked that up.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. I spent a lot when Adobe switched to their new stupid launcher app, the Creative Cloud app. I spent a long time trying to get that running in Wine, and it would not work because it was using the Internet Explorer web view in Windows to render that app. It was like Electron, but it was using IE. And in Wine, you can like really only comfortably go up to like IE7 or maybe 8 sometimes. So it didn't work, you know. And I had to like, you know, because I had my installation script for Creative Cloud on Linux, and like it got picked up by Linux blogs at one point. So there were people asking me like, "Hey, this is broken." Like, I eventually had to like close the repo. I'm like, "Sorry guys, I don't know. Adobe fucked it up. Just go buy a Windows PC." I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I still get like I still get notifications of like people leaving stars on that repo, and I'm sure they're like, I hope this guy figures it out.
And sometimes that's, you know, it sucks, but sometimes that's all you can do is just hope for the best and
mark it for later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love it if I could get it to work again because that was kind of neat, but nope, not gonna happen.
No, not so much.
I'll put the repo in the chat because this did get picked up in a lot of places, and I was pretty like when it was working, it was pretty great. I could run like current Photoshop on Linux, and then everything broke. I'm sure it still works great if you have pirated Adobe Creative Cloud. So I guess it may be still useful for that.
I'm sure Adobe was real happy about this too.
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna go now.
Yep. All right, man. Well, good having you by. Uh, just got an email that I might need to look into later. But yeah, good having you by. Is there anything you want to pitch or say on the way out? Yeah, see, getting hit with this question is always a rough one.
I've already said Tech Tales. I can say I did officially release my my new web app, Snappy, which I talked about here, so I don't need to do that again. But it's officially out now. I think I fixed all the bugs. There's like I noticed there's one bug with like maybe because of Retina screens where like the resolution isn't right, and then I did notice Safari has like doesn't really work with this. There's like a pretty big Safari bug where it just adds black space to the image. I don't know why. So I'll figure that out later, maybe not. I don't know. But yep. Okay, I'm going now. Bye.
All right, take it easy, man. Okay, so I am going to hit for sure 2 more topics. One because I don't. One because I think it's only going to be interesting to talk about right now. I don't think there's any point in saving it for next week. And another one because I'm lazy enough. I don't want to go look for a link that I can store for next week. So just getting that one out of the way first. Last week, of course, WWDC occurred. We talked about it on the stream. I would like to say extensively, but in point of fact, we really only talked about, or I only really talked about, well, oh no, Corbin was there. So yeah, we really only talked about the headset. The AR headset got extensive conversation. We did at least bat around a few of the other topics, but there's one particular thing that everyone predicted was going to be a part of this show, and there wasn't a single mention of it. And this could be said about a lot of things, actually. There were a lot of predictions about various things that people expected to come for macOS, for watchOS. Actually, there were a lot of predictions for watchOS that didn't come true. But the prediction for iOS that never came true was that there would be announcements related to Dynamic Island. Of course, Dynamic Island was the thing that Apple had to do their big, like, you know, the big dog and pony show routine when they announced the last iPhone, because, hey, they decided to go with a giant punch hole sort of configuration as opposed to the notch. And everyone had to ask, like, why are you doing this? You are actually taking up more screen space in order to add this thing that doesn't really make anything bigger or better. It's just taking up space. And I think it's really actually very telling that Apple didn't announce anything very significant about Dynamic Island. Now, it's certainly possible, and I admit I haven't gone looking for it, but it's possible that Apple may have discussed this in sessions. But there wasn't a mention during the keynote, and I haven't seen any news about any Dynamic Island related stuff. While I'm reluctant to make any sort of big predictions about such things, I'm left kind of wondering if this is maybe a sign that Apple is already seeing a end to their punch hole exploration. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen this year. Certainly not. I have no idea, but I have a funny feeling that they'll probably do 2 generations with the punch hole. But I think that they're probably like a big part of theories, the predictions, was that the dynamic island was going to be a thing that got a lot of developer SDK support this year. And again, maybe it did. Maybe that happened in some side, like various other sessions, but it wasn't mentioned. And considering the absolutely boring as can be announcements that they filled they filled Dub with this year, I feel like dynamic island stuff would have actually been one of the top subjects. But it wasn't mentioned. And to me, this is a small indicator. A very small indicator, but a small indicator for sure. That we're just not going to see much more of a future for the dynamic island in iPhones. So maybe it will exist this year, but I think this probably is indicative that Apple doesn't want developers spending a whole lot of time building stuff for dynamic island when they could be, working on other things. And the only likely reason they would do that is if they just don't plan on keeping it around too much longer. And the obvious assertion there would be they're either going to move back to a notch, doubt it, or more than likely they're probably headed towards an under-display camera. Maybe they're getting close enough to the point where they feel like they can do a selfie camera under display that is not overly compromised. They want to work on Vision Pro. I mean, yeah, that too. So yeah, that's my hunch. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off base. I certainly could be, but I mean, if we're gonna try to read the tea leaves, that's where I would go with this one. Let's see. Carson, for what it's worth, there were a couple developer video sessions over Dynamic Island and live activities. Yes, I did know that they at least had a developer session about Dynamic Island. I didn't actually catch the one about live activities, but my interpretation on that, because I do at least have one interpretation. This is the first WWDC since the Dynamic Island happened. So they still wanted to do a session, but they didn't, because they couldn't do it last year. So this year they do their Dynamic Island session. They highlight like how to build for it, things like that. But as far as I'm aware, they didn't announce any big new features. Again, I could have missed that. It's possible that because I certainly haven't followed everything that came since, but I haven't heard any news about anything particularly special about Dynamic Island. So yeah, that's my loose interpretation for now. Moving on to the other big one, because we obviously just kind of have to call this one out. And it was in Discord. But the Pixel Watch finally has its Metal Links band. And holy crap, it's June. It's June. This, first off, was expected to come out a few months ago. And it's now pretty late. So I'm sorry, but it's still technically launching in spring. Yes, spring. That time of year that ends. Wait, is it tomorrow? When is the official end of spring? The 21st, is that? In the Northern Hemisphere, for example, spring runs from March 1st through March 31st. Okay, but according to this other part over in Wikipedia, it's got it happening until June 21st. So So, however you'd want to define it, it doesn't matter. Um, regardless, this, yes, they may be technically launching in spring or maybe the start of summer. The key point here is we're gonna be getting a new Pixel Watch in just like, let's say 4 months. Could even be sooner. It might be September. But come on, like seriously, oops, no, that one we're not talking about today. So the metal link band, I'm sorry, but this is just, it's a bad time to release it. I get that they were making it, they wanted to get it out. I'm confused why they couldn't get it out earlier. This is absolutely an easy thing to manufacture. Like, we all know this, right? Am I crazy here? I better get my summer equinox goat sacrifice before Costco runs out. Oh, I am a regular at Costco. That's true. Anyway, yeah, so I'm just gonna say, and this was obviously the sentiment already in Discord, so I'm really just agreeing here. But it is way too late to be releasing a product like this. And very, very importantly, I think this is so key and fundamental. They did not even confirm whether or not the next Pixel Watch will use the same mount. So it's not even clear if you will be able to reuse the link band that is a ridiculous $200. It's not even clear you'll be able to use it on the next watch. Damn it, they made it a bit complicated with the links, but yeah. Right, but what I mean is it's a simple enough product. It's not like this is a hard thing to manufacture. Yes, maybe they did a little bit more with the links, but at the end of the day, this is still small pieces of metal that they're probably, I mean, logically, they're almost certainly not shaping these. They're probably just pouring them into a mold. But yeah, I'm sorry, but my question, I feel like is fairly obvious. Why did it take them this long to get this out? It seems like something they probably could have and should have been able to do, I would say months ago, if not on launch day. But here we are. We're looking at something that only has a few months of definite current use, and they're only now releasing it at a pretty high price tag. I mean, I've bought some pretty nice link bands for, I think I paid like $12 for one of them. And granted, that was not the best one, but I also bought one for, I think I bought one for 20 that was actually really nice. Looked basically exactly like what this one looks like. I'm just saying, it seems overpriced, but far more importantly, and I think the much, much more important thing is, they didn't even confirm that this is the same band connector that's going to be used in the Pixel Watch 2. That would have been the lowest bar for Google to announce. Literally just come out with a band and just put it on a blog post somewhere. Like a straight up, by the way, this will work with the next watch. Like, just commit to that. It is the lowest ask. Just commit to this thing working with the next watch, and people will be like, oh, okay, cool, I'll buy it now. It's kind of madness that they're not. Also, I have a funny feeling that if it does work with the next watch, they're probably going to sell models of the Pixel Watch 2 that just simply come with this band. So anyone who's looking to upgrade probably shouldn't buy this unless they really can't wait. They should just wait for the next Pixel Watch to come out and then pay, I'm guessing based on this price, $600 to get it. Maybe $550. Like, how does this? I'm sorry, but how does this price happen? I don't get this. Yeah, or the mesh band that went missing. Yeah, the mesh bands honestly also are kind of nicer. Don't get me wrong, I actually think Link's look better. I think Link's look way better. But the mesh band is a little more comfortable. And also the mesh band fits tighter, or can fit tighter. So yeah, that's probably the better band for them to have made. But hey, whatever. Austin, all about the stretch bands. Yeah, well, to be fair, there are also metal stretch bands. This one could have been that, but it's not. For what it's worth, I'm generally... I'm not personally a huge fan of the stretch bands. I don't hate them exactly. It's just something about them I've just never liked. A big part of it, though, is I don't like that they are easily stolen. Not that I've ever had one taken off my wrist, but that's certainly one of the classics. You call them arm hair pluckers? Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, that actually is exactly what they do. So yeah, I'm honestly, the style of band that they show here, like this is my preferred style. I think this is the best looking. It's not technically the most comfortable. It's not mostly because it can go a little loose on you, and you know, if you can be in a situation where, like, if you remove one more link, it's gonna be too tight. If you put in or leave in that link, you're gonna end up with something that's too loose. Like, that happens really easily with link bands. But you know, I'm sorry, I still like the look more. So yeah, anyway, this the bigger issue here is this is still Google being bad at a product launch. They needed to get these out at the time that they released the Pixel Watch. They didn't. They came out with a promise that the next that they would have a link band by a certain time frame. They met that time frame barely, with days left. Days left. Not even double-digit days left, and depending on how you measure it, possibly not even days left. They missed it. Whatever the case, I'm just gonna say, like, they have to do better than this. Who is in charge of products that they couldn't get out this band? Was it forgotten? Was there a strategy behind releasing it this late? Was there some sort of cost situation, or was there a catastrophe at a factory somewhere? Like, what is a reason for this? And whatever the reason is, somebody probably should be, like, just coming out and saying, we wanted to get this out earlier. Like, even you don't even have to say why. You just have to confirm to people that this wasn't a total screw up. Not that anybody is going to care enough. I mean, it's a band. It's a watch band from a company that is otherwise a multi-billion-dollar company. They don't need to answer questions like that, but they should. So yeah, that's my takeaway on this one. Also, yeah, Carson, those are some awesome pictures from Japan. Um, you've got a lot of neat ones in here. Um, yeah, and that cover photo is killer. Um, as are like there are a couple of the others that hit similar building styles that also just look really awesome. Um, I'm kind of jealous. I would like to be. I'd like to check this out. Um, anyway, so let's see. I think that about wraps it up. Um, let's see. So I should be game streaming this weekend. I don't foresee any particular reason I won't be. I am going to have, let's see, if all goes as expected, I will have a NAS review coming out on Friday. Hopefully, I will also have um, the Insta360 Flow review coming out in the next few days, hopefully. Um, Also, let's see, I have this has so I have one review unit I can't talk about, but I also am going to be receiving, and this one might be of interest to some people, the Synology B drive. This has been announced, so there's no secrecy here. The B drive is a portable SSD with its own battery, and it's intended to be used, like the way they market it is a little bit more of like just an SSD that you can plug in over a USB port, USB-C, and load stuff up from your computer, carry to another computer, blah blah blah, and it has backup software, etc., etc. But the cool thing about it, and the part that I'm more interested in, is it also has Wi-Fi built in, and you can connect with your phone, and it can auto backup your photos, videos, presumably other files. I don't know about other files yet. I won't really know till I get to play with it. But if you're the type of person who stores or wants to be able to back up stuff from your phone to a separate drive, all wirelessly and kind of conveniently, it might be an interesting thing for you. I haven't received it yet. Literally sent the email as the stream was starting. Like during the intro card, I finished typing the email with communicating with him and sending my address. So, but I imagine that'll be arriving somewhere in the next week. So I may have opinions even before then. But a big part of my plan is, oh, I can show them. I assume you're talking about the photos. Let's see. Am I in the? Yeah, I'm in the right view. But yeah, there are. What was I gonna say? Oh, yeah. So I'll probably. I'll be experimenting with going out and shooting a lot of video footage and things like that, and just seeing what it's like, how good it is at doing the backups. Yeah, that looks neat as hell. Those mountains, jeez, those mountains. That's such an awesome view. You wish you had a DSLR? Yeah, no kidding. This would be such a beautiful place to shoot. I mean, it's kind of funny because I know a couple of places here in Oregon that actually, if you showed this picture to somebody, they would just think, oh, wow, where is that in Oregon? Because it just, there's so many things that look familiar, but you would have a hard time putting all of them together in any particular spot. But also, it is weird. It is kind of uniquely, weirdly Japanese. Little things do stand out. And then, of course, you get to some of the other stuff, and it just, this is such cool design. Let's see. Austin saying would love to turn those into prints. Yeah, there's certainly some neat ways that you can upscale. Obviously, like the cover photo was the big, like, perfect choice in this. Running back to that one, which was, yeah, right there. This thing. Okay, I shouldn't have done that. There we go. Get the proper zoom feature going on. Yeah, use put to work that object removal tool on the pixels to get rid of all those people on the beach. Actually, probably even just crop out a little bit of that right side, and this just becomes one of those. It becomes one of those just perfect photos. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, the sharpness. It still looks really neat, but when you do zoom in, unfortunately, you do lose some of that detail. Or rather, it's obvious that you don't have the detail on the zoom, but it still looks really good. You do get a bit of that painterly effect when you get up here in the treetops, but you know, what can you expect from a phone? Like, it can only do so much. And even a lot of cameras cannot do too much better than this. You have to have a really, really expensive lens once you're at the distance that I'm assuming you were at. In order to have gotten this particular perspective, you'd have to be a decent distance out. Plus, it was a little foggy that day, but that's kind of what sells this. Is taken across from a ferry. Yeah, that's kind of, I had a feeling. But I mean, imagine this without the fog, or rather without that like cloudy fog up in the top. That's what sells this picture. That is so good. Yeah. So, are you still over there, or are you back now? Either way, I'm assuming you had a good trip, because at the very least, gorgeous shots. You're back? Okay. Had a feeling. Returned on Sunday? Okay. Yeah, I'm assuming that this was a good trip, because just, you got to see so many great places. Jet lag was killer. It's hard not to be. Well, okay, I can't say that. I don't really suffer from jet lag. That's the benefit of not having a real sleep schedule. I also don't have a real wake schedule, so I wouldn't say I'm good at falling asleep on a plane, but regardless of what happens, 9 times out of 10 I'm gonna get off a plane and just go until I can't go anymore, and then I crash sleep for a while, and then I wake up at whatever time I need to, and then usually that's me kind of resetting, so the jet lag doesn't matter as much. But yeah, anyway, yeah, this looks killer. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna kill that link. So yeah, anyway, let's see. It is, yeah, it's almost 6. I need to go anyway because I have to finish some review photos. So I will, like I said, I will be back this weekend for game streams. As usual, if anyone would like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. Because even now that YouTube has lowered its requirements, I do not qualify, nor do I actually want to necessarily encourage using YouTube, because YouTube also takes, by the way, like twice as much a cut off the top than Patreon does. Even in the worst scenarios for Patreon, which I also find kind of funny. But anyway, with that, I hope you all are doing, or will have an excellent rest of your week. Thank you all for coming by, being part of the conversation, chatting with us. This has been a very lively chat, which always helps. Believe me, even if we don't necessarily respond to everything, believe me, I'm actively reading every message that comes through. What did I just... Sorry, just found a weird loose piece of plastic in something I was fiddling with. Anyway, so yeah, trying to think if there was anything else. I'm drawing a blank on anything else, so I'm gonna call that a good one. So again, thanks all for coming by, hanging out, and I will see you in the next one. Good night, everybody.